I will love and have no fear. Yeah, when I get where I'm going, don't cry for me down here. I'm gonna walk with my granddaddy, and he'll match me step for step. And I'll tell him how I've missed him every minute since he left. And then I'll hug his neck. Yeah, when I get where I'm going, there'll be only happy tears. I will shed the sins and struggles I have carried all these years, and I'll leave my heart wide open. I will love and have no fear. Yeah, when I get where I'm going, don't cry for me down here. With so much pain and so much darkness in this world we stumble through, all these questions I can't answer, and so much work to do. But when I get where I'm going, and I see my Maker's face, I'll stand forever in the light of His amazing grace. Yeah, when I get where I'm
Folks, obviously you can see that we're full, so the best thing that you could do for us is if you'll move to the outsides and we'll create more room for folks on the aisle, at least help us get everybody seated. We'll also take standing room on both sides, and we have an overflow area, but we'd like to get as many in here as possible to get the full effect. Thank you.
Old broken saddles, rusty barbed wire, nights on the range, around a peaceful campfire. We're glad to have known you and shared some good times. Farewell, old friend, to a cowboy's last ride. The preacher man said some kind words today. He talked of your life and the family raised. We all gathered round to say our final goodbyes. Farewell, old friend, to a cowboy's last ride.
No, I'm just setting it down.
Yippee-ki-yay, old-timer gold. Heaven waits as the sun's getting low. We'll see you someday where the trail meets the sky. Farewell, old friend, to a cowboy's last ride. Stories you've told will forever live on, about the rustlers, the ramblers, and the heroes you've known. Here's to the memories that you leave behind. Farewell, old friend, to a cowboy's last ride. Yippee-ki-yay, old timer go. Heaven waits as the sun's getting low. We'll see you someday where the trail meets the sky. Farewell, old friend, to a cowboy's last ride. Farewell, old friend, to a cowboy's last ride.
There's an old man in a lazy boy, TV on a western, fast asleep. Gray in his hair, at least what's left, but the heart of a lion beating in his chest. And there's a little more slow in his go, a little less rock in his roll these days. But I remember him 10 feet tall and bulletproof, throwing me a ball in cowboy boots. A whistle and the dog started running, a whisper and mama starts blushing, a wrench in his hand and a beer in the other. I couldn't make a man any tougher, and that S on his chest is starting to fade. But I'll always remember him that way. I used to think that he'd never get old. That kind of thing was for regular Joe. And he tries real hard to put up a fight, but I guess time is his kryptonite. 'Cause I remember him 10 feet tall and bulletproof, throwing me a ball in cowboy boots. A whistle and the dog started running, a whisper and mama starts blushing, a wrench in his hand and a beer in the other. God couldn't make a man any tougher, and that S on his chest is starting to fade. But I'll always remember him that way. There's a little more slow in his go, a little less rock in his roll these days. But I remember him 10 feet tall and bulletproof, throwing me a ball in cowboy boots. A whistle and the dog started running, a whisper and mama starts blushing, a wrench in his hand and a beer in the other. God couldn't make a man any tougher. You had S on his chest, starting to fade. But there's some things time can't erase. 'Cause I'll always remember him that way.
came by today to see you. Oh, I had to let you know. If I knew the last time that I held you was the last time, I'd have held you and never let go. Oh, it's kept me awake nights wondering. I lie in the dark just asking why. I've always been told you won't be called home until it's your time. I guess heaven was needing a hero, somebody just like you, brave enough to stand up for what you believe and follow it through. When I try to make it make sense in my mind, the only conclusion I come to is heaven was needing a hero like you. I remember the last time I saw you. Oh, you held your head up proud. I laughed inside when I saw how you were standing out in the crowd. You're such a part of who I am. Now that part will just be void. No matter how much I need you now, heaven needed you more. 'Cause heaven was needing a hero, somebody just like you, brave enough to stand up for what you believe and follow it through. When I try to make it make sense in my mind, the only conclusion I come to is heaven was needing a hero like you. Yes, heaven was needing a hero, and that's you.
When I get where I'm going, on the far side of the sky, the first thing that I'm gonna do is spread my wings and fly. I'm gonna land beside a lion and run my fingers through his mane, where I might find out what it's like to ride a drop of rain. Yeah, when I get where I'm going,
So probably, I don't know, several years ago, Coach Semore, I was out at his place, and he asked me if I'd have a part in his service. And I said, Coach, whatever you need, I'll do whatever you'd want to do. And, we didn't talk about it for years. And then about 3 months ago, he said, or I think I might have asked him, hey, what are you going to do about your service? He kind of looked at me and had that little grin that he has, and he said, you're going to do it. And I thought, made me kind of think like, I felt kind of like he's gone to the mound, I'm sitting in the bullpen, and he reaches up with his left hand, and I look around, I go, right-hander, 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 right-hander. So when the big coach tells you to come in and pitch, you come in and pitch, okay? So I want to thank everybody for being here today. I know there's people come from a long way, and I know it's out of your respect for Coach Semore, but I want to thank you for being here on a day that we want to honor a guy that is very, very special to us. This is a tough day. I know it's a tough day for the family. And we felt like, I think, for many of us, I know there's a lot of players out there, we felt like his extended family. So it's a tough day. But it's also a good day. It's a good day. And I say it's a good day because we have the opportunity to talk about, laugh, and cry about a man who really had a profound effect on a lot of our lives. And so from that standpoint, I know I was here early, there's stories being told, there's talk being, exactly how Coach would like it. And as I look here today, he always liked a full dugout. He's got a full dugout, right? So we're thankful for everybody who's been here. I would say that if I could take my finger and point at somebody and ask you, do you have a Enos Semore story? I would say any one of you in this audience could walk up here and have an Enos Semore story, because that's how he affected people. Okay? That's who he was. I want to say my deepest condolences to the family. I know this has got to be difficult. I know when I lost my father, it was a really difficult time. And it's just something that we're probably never really prepared for. But I want you guys to know how much we hurt for you, how much we are sad for you, but we also know that hopefully that your sadness in the days coming will turn to gladness as you have time to reflect on who he was, what he meant to you, the man that he was. And so I think as time goes on, that will be better for you. It's a big loss. It's a big loss. And I'm going to be using a lot of water probably, because this is difficult for me. So it's a big loss for all of us. A loss that we really didn't think was going to happen maybe this fast. But Coach, he started great. As we know in Red Hill, he ended great. He finished great. He was one of the most special men I've ever known. So it is a big loss. But we will get through it, and we will spend our time talking about him today. And then we will take him back to a special place for him in Tamaha, where his siblings and his parents are all buried. And I think it'll be a fitting way to put his body to rest and for us to respect and honor him. Let's pray. Our Heavenly Father, we're thankful for today. We're thankful for this time that we can come and remember a great man. We're so thankful for his life. We're so thankful for how it impacted our lives. And we're just so thankful that we knew him and that we knew what he was about, and that each one of us probably, as we go forth from this day, will carry a part of him with us for the man that he was. We pray for the family today. We pray for their loss. We know they're hurting, but we also know that you're the God of all comfort. And we pray that you would comfort this family today and in the days ahead as they deal with this difficult situation. Thank you, God, for allowing us to have known Coach Semore and for what he meant to each one of us. We're so thankful for the fact you have given us life and you've sustained us, and we're so thankful that we can take this day to remember Coach Semore. In Jesus' name we pray, amen. One of the things, before I read the obituary, one of the things I thought about was walking in here. I thought, if Coach was here, he'd say, what about today? He goes, great day for two. It's March the 1st, very little wind, sun's out, it's close to 70 degrees. But then I thought, no, he probably wouldn't say it's a great day for two. Because I talked to one of the Bacon guys a couple of nights ago, and I also experienced this. He would say it's a great day for four. Because we literally, I think, Jackie, you were a part of that, weren't you? We played 4 in one day in Arizona. We started with, I think we started with Utah State or somebody. All I can tell you is the last 2, and this is back when this school, when I say this name, all you guys that are baseball guys will know, the last 2 are against Arizona State at their place. So he was running people back and forth to eat and to the dorms, wherever we were staying, to keep ready. But we played 4. So I think today Coach would say it's a good day for 4. Okay. Enos T. Semore was born April 28, 1931 in Red Hill, Oklahoma, a place I couldn't find on the map, to Gene and Asher Atkins Semore. He passed away February 23, 2025 at his home in Noble. He was preceded in death by his parents, his sisters, Ulema Dennis Bishop, Ena Henry, Rena Taylor, and Annis Williams, and his brother Hargus Semore, and his wife Mary Lee Jennings Semore. He is survived by son Lee Semore and his wife Cheryl, a daughter Janie Semore Biles and her husband David, and son Scott Jennings Semore. Grandsons Jordan Semore and his wife Jennifer, Rance Semore and his wife Jillian, Jackson Biles and his wife Kendall, and Jameson Biles and his girlfriend Allison Austin, and granddaughter Trinity Jane Biles. Ex-wife Bobby Lasher Semore, grandchildren Zoe Tucholsky, Riley Semore, Emma Semore, Reagan Semore, Wyatt Semore, and William Biles, as well as other countless nieces, nephews, cousins, and much other loved family. Enos attended Kyoto High School and served proudly in the U.S. Army. And it was when you see this video, it's an intimidating looking pose he's got in his military look. Whew. I would not want to mess with him. He graduated from Northeastern State University, where he earned a bachelor's degree in education. He was a 4-year letterman in basketball and baseball at NSU and was inducted into NSU's Athletic Hall of Fame in 1989. He coached the Bacon College baseball team to the National Junior College Championship in 1967, and then went on to be the head baseball coach at the University of Oklahoma for 22 years. Coach Semore is still Oklahoma University's winningest baseball coach in program history. He earned 851 wins. Okay, I want to stop here and just pause for a minute, give you a little quick story as I'll pick back up. So, not too long before he died, Joe and I went out to see Coach. And at his place there, above his fireplace, there's a mantle, and then there's a great picture of Coach Semore, and he's got that, looking over the bow of the ship look, where he's standing there, like he's contemplating life and watching everything go on. And he's got this superimposed record, 851, 373 851 wins, 370 losses. So Coach Semore and I have had for years kind of a little different relationship where I'm probably one of the few guys that can really gouge him, and he's okay with it. So I walked over there and looked at that, and I turned, and he was sitting in his chair that he always sits in. And I turned and looked, and I said, 370 losses? And he kind of looked up at me, because, again, he was struggling some then, but he looked up at me and goes, they should have fired that guy. Perfect Coach Semore line, right? Okay, where was I? Okay, gave him a winning percentage nearly 70%. He was inducted into the American Baseball Coaches Association Hall of Fame in 2005 and was just selected as a member of the 2025 Oklahoma Sports Hall of Fame class. And I am so thankful that he was alive to know that, to hear that. I was so happy with what they did on the wall and retires number. This one is a big one. And he even recognized, because another guy that went in there was his Ken Hayes, right? Who was his college teammate at Northeastern, who then hired him, as we'll talk about in a little bit, at Bacone. So, I mean, how great was that for him? But to know that, to be able to know that, which I thought was great. He helped spearhead the building of L. Mitchell Park in '81. The Big Eight's first true baseball stadium, moving the program from its previous home at Haskell Park. Now, this is a strange one for me too, right? What county was he born in? Haskell County. And he coached at the biggest university in the state of Oklahoma from a town whose I couldn't even find the name of to Haskell Park. I don't know. Some of this stuff, you know, what do they say when detectives always say, I don't believe in coincidences? Too many coincidences, I'm nervous. It's not that. So this was meant to be. While all the conference championships, postseason appearances, and College World Series trips during his tenure will forever live in the history books, it was his Hall of Fame leadership and his huge personality that members of his teams will remember and cherish most. And I think that is absolutely true. The University of Oklahoma retired as legendary number 24 in the spring of 2024 during a ceremony before the Baylor game. His number is displayed on the left field wall at L. Dale Mitchell Park.
Like a river attendeth my way, when sorrows like sea billows roll, whatever my lot, you have taught me to say, it is well with my soul. Is well with my soul. It is well with my soul. Though Satan should buffet, though trial should come, let this blessed assurance control that Christ has regarded my helpless estate and has shed his own blood for my soul. It is well with my soul. It is well with my soul. sin or the bliss of this glorious thought. My sin not in part, but the whole is nailed to the cross, and I bear it no more. Praise the Lord, oh my soul. It is well with my soul. It is well with my soul. It is well with my soul. And Lord, haste the day when my faith shall be sight, the clouds be rolled back as a scroll, the trump shall resound, and the Lord shall descend. Even so, it is well with my soul. It is well with my soul. It is well with my soul. It is well with my soul.
I told Stan I didn't want to follow him today, but he got to write the lineup up. So, listen, it's, to Lee, to Janie, to Scott, to all of your family, terrific honor, to be able to be a part of this. I think all of you know that Coach Semore was very special to me. He, as Stan, I got to play and coach on his staff, and so my relationship obviously was different. The longer I was around him, he impacted me in ways that I can't tell you. I think, talking to some of the players, former players, over this week, larger than life was a phrase that was frequently brought up when talking about Coach Semore, and it's true. He truly was to all of us, and what I want to try to do more than anything is just speak from my heart, but also represent the players, former players, former staff, because I think in a lot of ways we all felt the same way about the man. Our relationships were what they were different, but that's kind of where I want to come from today. Before I go on, the one thing that, as Stan was talking, that kind of resonated with me, we all have a place where we come from, and we go out into life and we do what we do, and we were all fortunate to be a part of a great fraternity, at the University of Oklahoma in the baseball program, and it was because of him. Obviously, he's the one that opened the door and gave us the opportunity. We had people that helped make that happen. But one of the most impressive things about him, about Coach Enos Semore, he never forgot where he came from. It's apparent with where we're at today. It's apparent with, the people that he, continually talked about from this part of the state. It was as genuine as you could make one. You got what you got, And as we all got out in the world and we experienced different things and different challenges and different people, what's a great trait, if you can find it, but that's what he was. He was genuine. He was who he was, and proud of it, and proud of where he came from, and he gave that to some of us, that and a lot of other things. So I just wanted to touch on that. He built his program at OU. I mean, literally, as those, even from out here and those that were part of that. He built that program, gave us an opportunity to get our education, to be a part of something special, and he wanted us to be proud of it. I can remember all of us, when we'd go on the road in the Big 8 and we'd exchange hats with the other team. He could not believe we would take a KU cap for an OU cap. It just never made any sense to him. A T-shirt from Kansas State? Are you kidding me? I don't know, and maybe after a time we just did it because we knew it got under his skin a little bit. But it's just amazing when you go back through everything what you think of. But that it's, we retired, the university retired his number back in the spring, last year, and I know a lot of people got a chance to be there. And it was special. I mean, it was a lot of fun to be a part of it and see him and Coach Switzer up there in the golf cart and people lined up to come by and say hello and get their picture and congratulate him. It was a special day for a special man, and you're just thankful that you get a chance to be a part of it. For me, the best thing that happened that day, the very best thing, as for those of us that have kind of been with him and seen him decline and have different challenges, as he went, he was really anxious about that day. Remember names. He was really anxious about just the mobility part of it. It was all becoming a challenge for him. And when he talked about that day, he just couldn't believe the mental clarity he had and the names and faces that he remembered. And it was like the most awesome thing for me to sit there and just listen to him talk about it. I don't know if it was, as I told Stan, I don't know if it was the baseball gods or the good Lord above, but he was blessed that day. And it was awesome that was his day, that he had, such a great day from an awareness standpoint. He just said, I just can't believe I kept remembering the people that were coming to talk to me. So that was really special. But, Coach Semore, he loved people. He did. And I think a good example of that, listen, I think Stan's going to talk more about the baseball stuff. For me, his record is his record, and you got to pull up some layers apart and get underneath the hood with him to find out what he was really about. But he was about people. He was about his players. He was about us. And he loved it when he heard from us. He loved it when he ran into us. I can't, tell me about this guy. What's he doing now? Tell me about his family. We went through all of it, and it was great. I'm blessed that I played that role for him some, especially here lately. But that's who he was. And when he was really starting to have some tough times late in life, and as soon as I walked through that door, or as soon as one of us would walk through that door, or the phone would ring, his whole day changed. He got a boost. He got a boost of energy from that little interaction until the next one called or the next one came through the door. And that's just how he felt about us. And so I think as players, we should all be thankful for that, and I know that we are. I know that we are. I want to touch on one thing. And I asked for permission to do this. Kevin Pearson and I, one of my teammates from OU, we were out seeing Coach Semore, I don't know, probably 6 weeks ago. Just, wanted to get out and say hello. And we're having a good conversation. We brought him some Rudies, and, he picked at it for a while. I don't think he was very hungry that day, but good talk. And so All of a sudden, I'm in the kitchen. I think I'm putting up his sandwich. I'm doing something. Kevin's in there, and the phone rings, and he gets his phone call, and he's, I'm not listening. I'm doing what I'm doing, and all of a sudden, it's like, Joe. That's what he'd say when he wanted to get your attention. He'd say, Joe, talk to this guy. So he handed me his phone. I've got no idea who it is. So anyway, this was a person from his past, his time at Bacone, okay? Wasn't a baseball player. Coach Semore also coached basketball at Bacone with Ken Hayes. And I think when Ken left for another opportunity, Coach Semore took over. So anyway, I'm talking to this guy, and he's lost. He's supposed to be coming out to see Coach today. And you get close to 2-4 Ranch, you can take a wrong turn. If you don't know where you're going, you can get off somewhere. So anyway, long story short, I finally navigated him in, okay? And Benny Price played for Coach Semore in, at Bacone. I think it was 64, 65 is what he told me, right around that time. From Lester High School in Memphis, Tennessee, and the guy saved my life is what he told us, out there that day. This is my guy. He saved me. And that's all great. I mean, it's a wonderful story. But I had to dig in a little farther, and so I called him, I think yesterday, and I said, come on, you got to give me some more. I just want to hear a little bit more about your story. But the long and short of it is this, to my point earlier about coaching his players. This guy, I'm talking about Benny, every April, he and Coach Semore had either breakfast or lunch because that's when their birthdays were. Okay, they both had a birthday in April. And so this has been going on for years. Coach Semore spoke at Benny's retirement in 2008, 44 years after he played for him. Okay? Still in Oklahoma. He still lives in Oklahoma. He's a wonderful guy. I mean, you should. I hope we got his pictures up here because I sent them in a little late. So, but it's just an example for me. And again, it's not related to OU baseball, but that's who he's been forever. Through the whole story. And we're all very, very, fortunate to have been a part of that. He just. Again, I can sit up here and mumble forever, but I loved him, and I got to tell him that a lot late in his life. Big old tough guy. It was kind of hard for him to reciprocate, but I knew he loved me. I knew he loved me. I don't have any doubt about it. But again, God bless all of you. This is an honor for me. I thought a lot of him, you know that. So God bless you all.
Let the old man in. I wanna let me some more. Can't leave it up to him. He's knocking on my door. And I knew all of my life that someday it would end. Up and go outside. Don't let the old man in. Many months I have lived. My body's withered and worn. Ask yourself how would you be if you didn't know the day. Try to love on you and stay close to your friends.
toast each sundown with wine. Don't let the old many months I have lived, my body's weathered and worn. Ask yourself, how would you be if you didn't know the day you were born? When he rides up on his horse and you feel that cold wind, look out your window and smile. Don't let the old man in. Look out your window and smile. Don't let the old man in.
On Sunday mornings, when my wife and I get up, as we're getting ready for church, we watch a show pretty much every Sunday. It's called Sunday Today with Willie Geist. And there's a segment on that show that they have every week. It's called A Life Well Lived. And they chronicle someone's life that maybe wasn't known nationally, maybe not, or internationally or nationally, but they chronicle a significant life. A life that had effect on people. And every time I watch that show and I see that segment, I think of Coach Semore. I think of A Life Well Lived. Here's a guy who, as I said earlier, I couldn't find the name of the town on a map years ago. And think about this life. Couldn't find it on a map. To a point where he gets to the 8th grade, and I kept finding myself, when I thought about his life, I kept saying, and it just so happened. He has no way to get the 7 miles from where he lived to Kyoto, to high school. And where he'd gone to school, they stopped in the 8th grade. Looked like it might be back to Sailor Bottom to go to work. But it just so happened that Kyoto school system started running a bus that particular year out to where he lived so he could go to high school. It just so happened, right? So he goes to high school, noticed, goes to Northeastern State, plays baseball, basketball, gets a degree, gets married, and heads, this is one I don't know, and somebody, I'm sure there's several out here that do. I'm sure family knows. I'm sure other people know. I don't know. I don't know why I don't know. I probably was told. I don't know. Went to Buell, Idaho. Now I'm thinking, there had to be probably a few places between here and Buell, Idaho, where they had a teacher's position open. But he went to Buell, Idaho, and actually last year in September, Gina and I, on our way, my wife's Gina, we took off on those crazy trips that we've done since we retired up through Utah and Idaho and Montana and Wyoming and all that. We stopped in Buell, Idaho. Nice little town on the Snake River. Beautiful little place. You know, heavy on the little, but it's a beautiful place. And so someone will tell me why it was Buell that he went to. I don't know. But anyway, comes back, they get pregnant, they're in Muskogee, he's teaching junior high, and it just so happened that his college basketball teammate is the guy hiring at Bacone for an athletic job. And the story goes that Ken Hayes, who's going in the Hall of Fame with him, says, hey, basketball or baseball, what do you want to do? So I asked the coach about that. Not the real story. He said, he asked me, I told him, I'm not picking because you're hiring me. So you tell me what it is you want me to hire, and I'll tell you yes or no. And so Ken said, well, you do baseball, I do basketball. I'll be the assistant in baseball, you be my assistant in basketball. Okay. So that's what he does. So wins a crazy national championship, 67. Just so happens, again, that Oklahoma University, the biggest school in the state, is looking for a baseball coach. Well, it's a pretty good little move when you've just won the national championship, and one of the teams you beat to get to the finals had an enrollment, now try this one on, 100 times bigger than your team. They had 250 students at Bacone. They had 25,000 at Miami-Dade South. You know what his answer to me was? They could only play 9. It's beautiful, isn't it? Beautiful. So he ends up at the University of Oklahoma, and he wins 851 games. After he'd won 152, I think, and 22 or something at Bacone. It wasn't like he just started winning. So what a great, great life well lived, right? That's just the baseball side of it. I mean, I've heard from everybody regarding, and I know a ton of the stories. I live some of the stories with that guy. So I saw this written somewhere, and I want to read it. Everyone at some point in their lives has achieved something great. If you trace the journey, you'd realize it wasn't luck. There was a series of decisions and actions along the way that led to that achievement. But most people mistake achieving something great for greatness. And there's a huge distinction. Greatness has no destination. It's not about the result, it's about the journey, the process. Showing up every single day with discipline and commitment, even when it's hard, even when no one is watching. But that commitment can only happen when you're doing something you love. And so today, I can tell you as a man who knew Coach Semore for 55 years. That's how long I knew him, 55 years. I was recruited by him. I played for him. I coached with him. I shared a lot of life stories with him. I laughed with him. And a couple of times I cried with him. And I can tell you this man had one special journey. So who was he? Who was this guy from Red Hill, Oklahoma? Well, to guys that played for him, I don't know about the Bacone guys, but I can tell you about the OU guys. We thought he was part Marlboro man without the cigarette, but I would say as time went on, he probably had a little pinch of something between his cheek and gum, as they say, right? Part Marlboro man. And the reason I know that is one time he called a pitch that I didn't particularly want to throw, and I threw it anyway, and it hit the in All Sports Stadium, it hit the Marlboro man, like right in the head. I think you were catching, Jackie, when that happened. I don't know. Anyway, so I blame that on him. Couldn't have been my fault, right? But he was more, we called him John Wayne in a baseball uniform, right? He was part Marlboro man, part John Wayne. He stood tall, you know. He stood tall. He looked us in the eye as players, and he told us the truth. And I'm not saying it happens all the time, but I can tell you about that man. That man's going to tell you the truth, and you may not like it. But you better not come ask him if you know why you're not playing, because he's got an answer, and it will be the truth. In fact, he carried himself really, If he's 6'2" or 3", whatever it was, he looked like he was 6'5". He carried himself straight and tall all the time, right? And in fact, when I was coaching with him, I had people say, "Yeah, I don't know, that guy's a little arrogant, I think, a little arrogant, the way he carries himself." Well, first of all, when you're my size, it doesn't matter how you carry yourself. But with him, that's what he was taught. He was taught you carried yourself, you stood straight and tall. And he learned it right down here. You carry yourself straight and tall, you look people in the eye, and you give them a firm handshake. Now, that might be where the problem starts, the firm handshake. Because for you guys that have shaken that man's hand, whew, that was a chore. I mean, you better get in there deep, you better get a good grip, and you better give it all you got. Because the last time I literally saw him was in the hospital. He'd fallen, and he'd taken the emergency room, and I was there, and he's laying there, and he kind of, he's struggling a little bit, but they were trying to see if he'd broken anything. And he looked up at me, and I reached out my hand. Firm handshake. Firm hand. If anyone here ever got a weak handshake from him, I need to talk to you afterwards, because there's not something wrong with him, there's something wrong with you. I promise you, that man, he would shake your hand. In fact, he showed us this game. I don't know if you guys remember this game. This game is where you took like your foot and you put it out and you shook hands, and then he would be on the other side shaking your hand, but he'd put his foot next to yours. And the idea of the game was to, whatever you had to do to pull a guy so his foot moved. Okay? Well, he'd always pick out the biggest, strongest guy, just to kind of show us, don't mess with me kind of deal. He'd pick out the biggest guy. And that guy might last 15 seconds. I don't know. It wouldn't last long. And you would be told, he'd just yank you right off your feet almost. So I'm thinking, hey, he's right-handed. I'm left-handed. So I'm saying, I got a shot at this. I got a shot. So I got to put my left foot out. He just kind of grinned, put his left foot out, and we shook hands. And I realized, when my hand disappeared, I realized I was probably in trouble. And so years later, I got on a plane, and I ran. I did scouting for like 30 years after when Coach retired, whatever, and they hired someone else, and I went on to scout. I was on a billion planes. And so every now and then you run into somebody. So I get on a plane one day, and about 2 rows back, I walk in, first class, there's a guy, and I go, well, I'm not walking by this guy. I see with his wife, he's talking to his wife, and I'm going, I'm sorry, but he's just going to have to meet me because I'm going to meet him, and that's just the way it's going to be. You can't walk by this opportunity. And I'd heard through the years from scouts that, hey, the way you determine power, it's not about bat speed, it's not about size. Because one time a guy told me, he says, well, if you think bat, because I said, he says, what gives you power? And I said, bat speed. The faster your bat is, the further the ball goes. He goes, did you ever watch Rafael Palmeiro swing a bat? And I went, yeah. And he goes, was it fast? And I went, no. Well, he goes, well, there goes your theory, because he hit 500 and something home runs. He goes, it's hand strength on a bat, so that when you swing the bat at contact, the bat doesn't slow down. It still accelerates and makes the ball really carry. It's hand strength. So Henry Aaron is sitting right there. I go, Mr. Aaron, I hate to bother you, but I'm in baseball, and I just can't not do this. So I shook his hand, and I went, oh, God, I thought Coach Semore immediately. Whoa. And this guy was only 5'11", Henry Aaron. But still, it's like freaky hands. And mine disappeared, and I thought immediately, that's Coach Semore. Happened one other time. I'm in California, seeing a high school kid. He was literally 16 when he started his senior year. 16 years old, but he's 6'5" and about 215. So I met him after the practice, so I said, I need to meet this guy. Because, again, I'd gone into the hand strength idea. So I need to see how strong this guy's hands are, because it was going to be a power hitter. If we took him, he was going to be a power hitter guy. I shook his hand, and literally I went, bigger than Coach Semore. And that's how I evaluated it. And it was a guy named, we used to call him Mike Stanton. His name now is Giancarlo Stanton. And he's on his way, if he doesn't get hurt, maybe to 500 home runs. But back to the Semore story, I lasted 5 seconds. And then he was still kind to me, because I was a left-handed pitcher, and I think he doesn't want to, like, put my shoulder out of joint, you know? It to give me a good excuse, because I wasn't very good. But, you just didn't mess with his hands. He was, that's just who he was. So he was about competing, and he was about working. And he always believed that no matter how good you were, when you came in, you could be better. You got to work. You got to work. And if you're not willing to work, there's the door. We work at this place. We come early. We stay late. We work. We will not be outworked by any team we play. They may have better skills, better tools. They won't be more prepared to play. They won't be harder workers than we are. So speaking of that idea of work, I kind of figured out where it came from. So I'm eating with him somewhere one day, and he's sitting there, and I looked, and on his index finger of his left hand, I looked, and there's a bunch of these little bitty marks, like scars on his left, from his knuckle to his end of his finger. And I looked at that, and I went, Coach, what's the deal with the scars? He said, that my young man is cutting spinach. I said, cutting spinach? He said, yep, you cut spinach in the fall. It's a cool weather plant, vegetable. You cut it, and he says, what you do is, he said, we cut it, we grew it down here in the fall, and he said the ground would be almost frozen. I'd be on my hands and knees, and the way you did it, he said, you'd reach with your left hand, and you'd take a whole bunch of spinach. It grew up, one stalk as it goes down the road, but I mean several of them, and you'd grab as many as you could, and then you'd cut it with a knife, as you go, and he'd put it in a basket, cut it, put it in a basket, cut it. Well, he said, I did not want anybody to cut more spinach than I cut. And I went, shocking, right? So he said, every now and then you get going fast, and that knife would nick your finger. And he said, and I said, well, how'd they pay you? So he said, well, and I don't know if you guys everybody's bought a little bag of spinach at the store, right? I mean, it's like as light as a feather. He said, when you had 25 pounds of spinach in that basket, or what you thought was 25 pounds, you took it back to the boss man, he paid you a dime. You get a dime for 25 pounds of spinach. And he said, I cut it all day, and I thought, nobody's going to cut more spinach than I'm going to cut. And I think that's just who he was, right? This is a guy that he told me this to, which I thought, unbelievable. When they were in Muskogee, he said, I woke up one day, I thought, I'm going to take up golf. I'm going to take up golf. I've never played golf. I want to take up golf. So he said, well, you get better is you do it. If you don't talk about it, you do it. So he played 63 holes that day. I went, come on. He said, no. And he goes, as soon as I got daylight where I could find the ball, till it got dark. And now, I've played with him. And I promise you, this is after he played a while. There aren't many of those balls in the fairway. He had the most vicious duck hook I've ever seen. Because we'd work it like years and years ago, when we were still up at the old ballpark, Haskell Park. We'd work in the morning and play at 9 or 18 in the afternoon, depending. And it's vicious. Or he'd hit a slice that you'd go, well, just don't even think about it. I mean, it's 3 fairways over. Don't even, And then every now and then, though, he'd hit one of those low, screaming, beautiful, I'd think, well, that's what that's the one, but very, very seldom. So, anyway, but he played 63 holes in one day. So he's a guy, and I don't know about the Bacon guys, we didn't talk about this, but I know at OU, we were required, when we came back from Christmas, he'd tell us, be ready when you come back. It's a 5:45 mile. And you had to run it before you could practice. And so when he said that, I'm thinking, well, the world record's like 4 minutes. I mean, we got to run. And we ran it on a 220 dirt track in the middle of January, outdoors. I mean, it was under the east side of the football stadium, but there was it wasn't enclosed. It was just you're out of the rain. In case it rained, it wasn't going to rain on you, but you were outside. And you ran it in 5:45, or you don't practice. So he ruined 3 of my Christmases. I got to come back ready to go. And if I don't, we got trouble. So that's what he did. That's how it worked. So, and I know later on he was, again, smart guy. So he guy didn't make it. Well, he had to run the next day. You got to run the next day for time until you made it. And he let a guy 2 or 3 times. And again, it was all body types accepted, right? I mean, the catchers, I felt bad for them. I mean, and thankfully, my friend over here, Jackie, he could run, so Jackie could do it. But a lot of times, big catchers, So I kind of figured it out a little bit later that he'd time them 2 or 3 times, and then he'd let his assistant or his grad assistant or whatever, and miraculously they would make it. And I think Coach figured, they'll probably figure out how to make it here within the first week, right? So then we'd go outside and we'd practice in crazy weather. Because we got to go play Texas in early March or whatever, or late February or middle February. So here we are at the end of January. It's 37, 38 degrees. It's freezing. And we had these, our sweats on, and we're out there, and he'd call us together, do his little dog whistle like he was whistling with his bird dog, and bring us together. And we'd stand there shivering and look at him, and he'd look at us like, what? And we're freezing. He goes, the wind's out of the south. It's fine. And I go, what does it even mean the wind's out of the south? Well, I guess in Oklahoma that means, it's supposed to be warm, but freeze to death. It's like, for him, there were no excuses. It was just get it done. He didn't want to hear about all the problems, right? Okay, so baseball's about numbers. It's just what baseball is. It's about numbers. And, right? If you're hitting 200, you're probably not going to play. If you're hitting 400, you're probably going to play. If your ERA is 6, you're probably not going to pitch. It's about numbers. In fact, in scouting, I know we have a couple of scouts here. We graded scouting on a scale of 2 to 8. And baseball is so much about numbers that we could have lived our life scout to scout by numbers. It's all about numbers. So you'd go, in 2 to 8, you'd say, hey, did you go see that movie? Yeah, what was it? About a 4. Hey, we ate it. Oh, that's a 6. It was 6, right? Everything you did was numbers. So Coach was about numbers. We know about his numbers. We know how many you won. We know all that. But I want to tell you, there's 2 numbers. 2 numbers that I can tell you about Coach Semore by 2 numbers. And the first number is 0. 0. That's the amount of times, that's the number of times that I can remember him talking about his record. Whether at Bacone or at Oklahoma. 0. Never heard him mention it. Not once. I want to know, nothing. Now, the closest I could get to him to react was when I said 370 losses. Now, he got a little reaction. Never talk about his record. And the other number that I think defined Coach Semore was 100. 100. And that's the percentage of times that I went to see him that he talked about his players. Talked about their lives, what was going on, how they were doing. That's just who he was. As Joe had said earlier, that's just who he was. Coach Semore cared. He cared, and he cared deeply. And when you coach 35 years, and you have 35 years worth of teams, you have a lot of people to care about, right? And so he told me the one thing, he said, the one thing I didn't factor into coaching, he goes, I didn't factor in that I would outlive some of my players. Didn't factor that in. And I will tell you, I think till the day he died, that was on his mind. I really do. Because it crushed him when he lost one, crushed him. Crushed him. I would tell you he'd give up every win to have that person back. Those people crushed him. And on the other side of the coin, he couldn't have been more thrilled when he got a phone call or somebody showed up. And I think his Bacone group, I think there were 10 or 11 that basically a week, maybe 8 days before he died, all showed up. They spent most of the day out there. They spent time with him, and that is what kept Coach Semore going. That's what he liked. Every time I'd go see him, talking about his players, and I'm going to mention a guy's name who's here today, but every time I went, it's like, Coach, should we talk about something else? He wanted to talk about Marvin Thuvenel. Marvin Thuvenel. It was always about, and again, no disrespect to anybody else at Bacone, because he talked about you guys too, but every time it was Marvin Thuvenel. And I can't tell you how many times when he started out, I'm thinking, as he's telling, I go, I could finish this for you, Coach, but I won't, right? But it was like, oh, we lost our catcher in the 67 championship year. And he goes, we had one guy that played basketball for me, and he goes, play anywhere, do anything. And he said, Marvin, can you catch? And he said, hollered back, yes, sir, I can catch. So he went in there and he caught. And they had a catcher, but the catcher was struggling a little bit, and he thought, we have to be a little bit better than this. So he said, I knew we had to do something, and we got a week before we go to the national tournament. He said the guy hadn't caught since high school, and he hadn't caught. And he said he caught every pitch, every pitcher, and he said we end up winning the 67 national championship. But talking about his players, and I mean, again, Marvin, I'm sorry, but your name is going to be in my head for the rest of my life. Because it was the Marvin Thuvenel story. Despite that crazy outward, sometimes tough guy thing, he'd always want to try to help people. He would do stuff. He would reach in his pocket and help people. Never talk about it. But I got to see behind the curtain. Man, and it's funny when you play for a guy, all you see is that stare that you may not like on a particular time. You don't get all the other stuff. But boy, when you're behind the scenes, gosh, that guy had a big heart. That guy's heart was huge. The way he tried to help people, and and I can tell you this because I was with him back in those days, and we weren't exactly, him included, we weren't exactly rolling in the dough. The head coach of the University of Oklahoma wasn't exactly rolling in the dough. I mean, he was doing okay, but I mean, it's like, he didn't necessarily need to reach in his pocket all the time, but boy, he would do it. So we love people, but the other thing that you need to know that I didn't really know a lot about till a little later in his life, and we started talking about it a little bit, he loved his God. He loved God. And he loved his son, Jesus Christ. He didn't wear it on his sleeve. Never wore it on his sleeve. But he loved them. And in fact, a few times in the last few years, he got to get in that conversation. He got into it more than I did. So I'm thinking, and I know I'm 72, and my mortality hits me in the face a little bit more every day as I look in the mirror. So maybe our time with God, we spend a little more time there. But he said, I said, how's that going? He goes, we're having a few more conversations lately. And I thought, well, that's a pretty good way to say it. It's a pretty good way to say it. In Matthew chapter 22, verses like 36 through 39, Jesus was asked a question, Teacher, which is the greatest commandment in the law? And Jesus replied, love the Lord your God with all your heart, with all your soul, with all your mind. And the second is likened to it. love your neighbor as yourself. Well, I can tell you, standing right next to him for a lot of years, he loved God, and I can sure tell you he loved his neighbor. Red Hill, Tomahawk, Sailor Bottom, Kyoto, Stigler. Big coach is back here now. And to me, as I thought about him a lot, in some ways he really never left here. He may have lived in Norman. His heart was always here. Because his family was here. And you'll see later today, when we go to Tomahawk Cemetery, they're all buried there. That's what it is. So he thought that the best people in the world were from down here. You know, again, his family obviously, but he thought, and I'll say the name, and I don't like to give a lot of names, but I've already done it once, so again, I can't tell you how many times he talked about a guy named Lee Tyler. Lee Tyler. Because he said Lee Tyler was the one man down here who had money. Again, he's right post-depression, right, coach is, but he said Lee Tyler had money. But Lee Tyler looked at every opportunity he could to help somebody with the money he had. He was always trying to help somebody. And so I would say to us today, if we want to be an example to somebody, it's not the biggest job that we have. It's not, how biggest car we drive. It's not who owns the most land. It's who's the best neighbor. Be a neighbor. Lee Tyler affected his life, which in turn affected so many other lives. But it was Lee Tyler who did that for him. Because he said to me, I want to be like Lee Tyler. And I said, well, let's try Jesus first, but then maybe Lee Tyler second. So, but Lee Tyler, that's what he said. I want to live to 100. And so I told him not too long ago, I said, Coach, you have to dig down deep, get that 100. And he said, well, I want to live to 100 because of Lee Tyler, but I also want to get all the retirement money I can get. Oh, that was great. Jackie Robinson is famously quoted as saying this: the importance of a life is defined by the impact it has on others. And I would say if that is true, and I believe that it absolutely is, that Coach Semore surely lived an important and a consequential life, and we'll miss him dearly. He had two great hobbies: horses and quail hunting with his bird dogs. And it's kind of funny, you could ask him, hey, who's the best player? The best pitcher you ever had? He'd kick the dirt, look around, let's go here and have something to eat. You want a cup of coffee? Wouldn't answer you. Couldn't begin to get him to answer you. Wasn't going to do that. Wasn't going to put that out in the universe. Had too many good players. Wasn't going to single anybody out. But don't ask him which horse he thought was the best he ever owned. You couldn't get the sentence out and he'd say, oh, Baron by far. Baron. Baron was his horse. And I got to ride Baron one time, and if I could ride Baron, anybody can ride Baron. Baron was a good horse. And I think he liked Baron so much because I think Baron reminded him of what he wanted in a player. He wanted players to be athletic and tough and smart, aggressive, instinctive, and have a big heart. That was Baron in spades. That's who Baron was, right? He was totally taken by that horse. And he did tell me he thought Baron had more instincts than most people he'd ever met, which I think he did too, probably. And then his favorite bird dog, are you going to be shocked by this name? Hoss. He named him Hoss. Why not, right? And Hoss was a big charging, long, wide-ranging bird dog. Still, and I hunted with him a time or two, he was still going as hard at dark as he was when you let him out in the morning. That's what he wanted in his players. There wasn't any jogging off the field. It was play 9, play it hard, play it right. So he was. And so he saw that. That's what Hoss was. So Hoss was a favorite to him. And finally, I'd say this. I certainly don't know everything, maybe not a lot of things about the afterlife. And he didn't really want a religious service, and we haven't done that here today, although I did want you to know how he felt. But I'm not going to get out of here without giving a couple of things, and he understood this. I don't know a lot about the afterlife. I know some. I've read a lot of the Bible about it. But if you read 2 Thessalonians 1:8, it says with two things. We need, and I would say this to all of you here, to remember this, and hopefully apply it in your life. We need to know God. We don't need to know about God. We all know about God, right? I know about electricity. I don't know electricity. I know about it. But I know my shotgun. I can break it down. I can put it back together. I know it. We need to know God, and we need to obey his gospel, the gospel of his son, Jesus Christ. We need to do that. So my prayer today, or so today, I would say this. My hope, my desire, and my prayer for Coach Semore is that he's sitting on Barron on a day pretty much like today. And Hoss is down there looking up at him. He's looking at a trail ride as far as your eye can see. And he's got a slight wind blowing from the south at his back.
There's an old man in a lazy boy, TV on a western, fast asleep. Gray in his hair, at least what's left, but the heart of a lion beating in his chest. And there's a little more slow in his go, a little less rock in his roll these days. But I remember him 10 feet tall and bulletproof, throwing me a ball in cowboy boots, a whistle and the dog started running, a whisper and mama starts blushing, a wrench in his hand and a beer in the other. I couldn't make a man any tougher, and that S on his chest is starting to fade. But I'll always remember him that way. I used to think that he'd never get old. That kind of thing was for regular Joe. And he tries real hard to put up a fight, but I guess time is his kryptonite. 'Cause I remember him 10 feet tall and bulletproof, throwing me a ball in cowboy boots, a whistle and the dog started running, a whisper and mama starts blushing, a wrench in his hand and a beer in the other. God couldn't make a man any tougher. That S on his chest is starting to fade. But I'll always remember him that way. Slow in his go, a little less rock in his roll these days. But I remember him 10 feet tall and bulletproof, throwing me a ball in cowboy boots, a whistle and the dog started running, a whisper and mama starts blushing, a wrench in his hand and a beer in the other. God couldn't make a man darkness fades. But there's some things time can't erase. 'Cause I'll always remember him that way.
I came by today to see you. Oh, I had to let you know. If I knew the last time that I held you was the last time, I'd have held you and never let go. Oh, it's kept me awake nights wondering. I lie in the dark just asking why. I've always been told you won't be called home until it's your time. I guess heaven was needing a hero, somebody just like you, brave enough to stand up for what you believe and follow it through. When I try to make it make sense in my mind, the only conclusion I come to is that heaven was needing a hero like I remember the last time I saw you. Oh, you held your head up proud. I laughed inside when I saw how you were standing out in the crowd. You're such a part of who I am. Now that part will just be void. No matter how much I need you now, heaven needed you more. 'Cause heaven was needing a hero, somebody just like you, brave enough to stand up for what you believe and follow it through. When I try to make it make sense in my mind, the only conclusion I come to is that heaven was needing a hero like you. Yes, heaven was needing a hero
get where I'm going, on the far side of the sky, the first thing that I'm gonna do is spread my wings and fly. I'm gonna land beside a lion and run my fingers through his mane, where I might find out what it's like to ride a drop of rain. Yeah, when I get where I'm going, there'll be only happy tears. I will shed the sins and struggles I have carried all these years, and I'll leave my heart wide open. I will love and have no fear. Yeah, when I get where I'm going, don't cry for me down here. I'm gonna walk with my granddaddy, and he'll match me step for step, and I'll tell him how I've missed him every minute since he left. And then I'll hug his neck. Yeah, when I get where I'm going, there'll be only happy tears. I will shed the sins and struggles I have carried all these years, and I'll leave my heart wide open. I will love and have no fear. Yeah, when I get where I'm going, don't cry for me down here. So much pain and so much darkness in this world we stumble through. All these questions I can't answer, so much work to do. But when I get where I'm going, and I see my Maker's face, I'll stand forever in the light of His amazing grace. Yeah, when I get where I'm going, there'll be only happy tears. I will love and have no Yeah, when I get where I'm Old broken saddles, rusty barbed wire, nights on the range around a peaceful campfire. We're glad to have known you and shared some good times. Farewell, old friend, to a cowboy's last ride. The preacher man said some kind words today. He talked of your life and the family race. We all gathered round to say our final goodbyes. Farewell, old friend, to a cowboy's last ride. Yippee
Yippee-ki-yay, old-timer road. Heaven awaits as the sun's getting low. We'll see you someday where the trail meets the sky. Farewell, old friend, to a cowboy's last ride. Stories you've told will forever live on, about the rustlers, the ramblers, and the heroes you know. Here's to the memories that you leave behind. Farewell, old friend, to a cowboy's last ride. Yippee-ki-yay, old-timer road. Heaven awaits as the sun's getting low. We'll see you someday where the trail meets the sky. Farewell, old friend, to a cowboy's last ride. Farewell, old friend, to a cowboy's last ride.